What's going on, Jeromes? The 2023 NFL Draft is in the books, and the Minnesota Vikings made a handful of sexy-ass selections and the greatest undrafted free agent class of all time, man. That's right. But as the sun sets, sun rises, the sun is going to set on the other side. So there's a handful of Vikings veterans who have been put on notice that they got to step up their game, or some of these rookies are going to turk their gerbs. So let's go through the list. First up, yes, starting up at the top, number 23 overall, wide receiver Jordan Addison. On notice is KJ Osborne. Now, KJ Osborne, a guy that I love a lot, 5th round pick, 2020 out of the U. He's really stepped up nicely as a wide receiver 3, and with Thielen gone, there is a power vacuum. And Thielen had 107 targets last year. Osborne did his damn thing. Obviously, Kirk Cousins loves and trusts him. He's a big reason why the Vikings had a spark in that Colts game. 157 receiving yards, really got things going. But Addison was brought in to be that guy, to be that long-term wide receiver 2 to Justin Jefferson. And KJ, respect, he's in a contract year, but is he going to be able to hold the kid off? Now, I think KJ will obviously still get his, and it may be a wide receiver 2A, wide receiver 2B situation this year, and then KJ is probably going to go off and get paid in free agency, and then Addison takes over. And I think that's probably the best that they can do at this point. All I know is that competition is fantastic, and KJ Osborne, he's a guy that thrives in adversity. I mean, a lot of fans gave up on him after his rookie year in 2020, where he had 0 offensive stats and was benched 3 times as a returner. But then he stepped up very nicely and has become a very solid wide receiver on this team. Also, players put on notice with Addison being drafted. I know Jalen Reagor, former guy drafted ahead of Jefferson, which is always going to be his claim to fame, as well as Jalen Naylor to a degree. I mean, Speedy coming in as a 6th round pick, got things together towards the end of the season. Either way, everyone's got to step up in that receiver room, and there's going to be a lot of balls, because even though the Vikings are going to run the ball, I mean, this offense is going to be legit this year. Next up, number 2, put on notice. So with the addition of cornerback Mekhi Blackman, put on notice are Andrew Booth Jr. and Caleb Evans. So Booth Jr. was the 2nd round pick last year out of Clemson. Caleb Evans was the 4th rounder out of Mizzou. And Evans looked good. Had a couple of starts, showed some flashes, had 3 concussions. Unfortunately, he sidelined him. Andrew Booth Jr., he was known at Clemson as a supreme talent, probably 1st round talent. He went number 42 overall for a reason. The Vikings traded up for him in the 2nd round for a reason, but health has been an issue, and his season ended with a meniscus, and when he was on the field, it wasn't great. But Blackman coming in, I mean, Brian Flores has no ties to these players, right? And yes, even though Kwesi drafted them, Kwesi also drafted Mekhi Blackman and in the 3rd round. And I think that Blackman has an alpha attitude. I think he's got a chippiness where he's going to be getting after it, being aggressive. That's exactly what Brian Flores wants in his corners. And overall, he is lengthy even for his height. So I think that he does have a chance to be an outside guy, even though Byron Murphy's going to be working in on the outside as well as in the slot. So we'll see. But I think that this is a spot where Evans and Booth, they do have potential. They do have a ton of talent, but I mean, they're on notice. They really do have to step up. Next up, player number 3 put on notice by draft picks. Cameron Bynum was put on notice by the acquisition of Carry On, my J-Word son. J-Word coming out of LSU, the versatile defensive back, and that's exactly what Cameron Bynum's game was coming out of Cal, where he was a cornerback. They moved him to safety, and even though Bynum was a significant contributor last year on defense, he had his highlights, and he certainly had his lowlights. And like I said, Flores coming in, he has no ties to any of these players. The best player is going to play, and the Vikings are obviously very hyped about Jay Ward, tackling machine. And almost you could say, to a degree, Lewis Seen put on notice to a degree. Coming back from the broken leg, a former 1st-round pick. Harrison Smith is obviously going to get his, and even though Flores likes running multiple safety looks, 3 safety looks, rotation, and there's going to be a ton of blitzing in there, I mean, maybe Seen's put on notice a little bit too, but overall, I think Bynum, especially given the way that Jay Ward can play inside, outside, can play either free or strong safety, I think he's certainly put on notice in this spot. Next up, player number 4 put on notice. So every defensive lineman not named Harrison Phillips, basically, basically. But Jaquelin Roy coming in as a nose tackle, coming in as a 5-tech. I think he's quickly going to ascend. I mean, he's a kid who was still developing in college. And I think that he's going to be a better pro than his stats at LSU suggested. But I think he's going to be a guy that's going to be tough to keep out of the lineup. I think that he potentially could bust into the starting lineup as a 5-tech and then be a pass rushing nose tackle. So working in with Bullard, working in with Blacklock, working in with Asazi, playing some backup nose tackle, working with Kairos Tonga. I mean, Dean Lowry, even though he is a free agent, I mean, he's not guaranteed a spot either. So I think that Roy has a chance to be an absolute disruptor along this defensive line. He has man-sized strength up top, needs to work on the lower body a little bit, needs to play with a little bit better leverage. But I think that he has a chance not only to be solid against the run, as well as set the edge and absorb bodies, but I think that he's going to be a guy that also could be a plus pass rusher once he matures and develops in a couple years. Next up, player number 5 put on notice. Nick Mullins, I guess, put on notice by Jaren Hall. Now, I know we're supposed to say that Kirk Cousins is put on notice by Jaren Hall, a 5th-round pick out of BYU, but I think Jaren Hall is exactly what he is. He's a high-upside developmental quarterback 3. Maybe he'll push Nick Mullins to be the quarterback 2. I don't know. This is where Jaren Hall, being older, being mature, I think certainly comes into play, where if he was just a 21, 22-year-old kid who knows nothing about nothing coming on in, maybe he doesn't push for QB2. But the fact that Jaren Hall is 25, I think that he does have a chance to really make a push here. Now, I think the Vikings will play it safe. I mean, Nick Mullins is a high-quality veteran backup quarterback, don't get me wrong. So I don't think that his job is in jeopardy. I do think that there's a solid shot that the Vikings carry through quarterbacks on the 53 this year, especially if Jaren Hall shows up and shows out in preseason and training camp. So the Vikings wouldn't want to risk it trying to put him down on the practice squad. So we'll go from there. Next up, player number 6 put on notice. Dalvin Cook, put on notice by Dwayne McBride. Now, I know what you're saying. It's like, how is Dalvin Cook, a star running back, making $10.4 million per year, put on notice by a 7th-round running back? That's because it's the running back position. And, McBride, it doesn't matter if you're a 7th-rounder like Isaiah Pacheco. It doesn't matter if you're a 5th-rounder like Tyler Algier last year, putting up 1,000 yards. If you're a running back, even if you're UDFA, you have a chance to get on the field and be a contributor. So, I mean, Dalvin, I honestly do think the Vikings will trade him post June 1st. A little bit of extra cap savings this year, spread it out to next year as well. So I think that is done. Madison is back on a 2-year deal. Kinkene, is he a running back or is he just a kick returner? I guess we're going to find out. And Ty Chandler stylistically, differs from McBride. Ty Chandler, a better receiver, more of a scat back. McBride, more of a 2-down player. So overall, I think that McBride is going to get on the field. I think that he's going to get some carries in the not-so-distant future. And also, I think that the future of Dalvin Cook is certainly up in the air. Next up, 2 to go. Players on notice. The backup off-ball linebackers put on notice by the acquisition of Ivan Pace Jr. in undrafted free agency. So, just look at the rest of the room. I mean, hell, you could say Jordan Hicks eventually, but I don't think Pace takes over this year. And to a degree, you could say that Asamoah and Pace are a little bit too similar. They're the undersized, super speedy linebackers that power running teams would feast on. I fully understand that, but I mean, having 2 Brian Asamoahs, it's not bad, man. But you look at Troy Dye, looking at Troy Reeder, free agent from the Chargers, who Kevin O'Connell knew from the Rams days, as well as William Kwenku, last year's UDFA out of Temple. I think that Pace is just going to come in like a whirling dervish and rolling ball of, like knives and fingernails, and just really take it to the offense in practice, really take it to teams in preseason. I think he's going to be a fan favorite, even though he's not going to be wearing number 0. That's Marcus Davenport. But I think Ivan Pace is going to quickly rise up the depth chart after making the 53-man roster. No muss, no fuss. Lastly, player number 8 put on notice by the draft acquisitions. So no one really put on notice by Andre Carter II, because you can never have enough dudes who can rush the passer. I mean, it's not like there's one edge rusher position, because, I mean, In a weird world where they hold on to Zadarius Smith, there will be packages where Daniil and Davenport and Zadarius are on the field at the same time. Or if Zadarius is gone, Daniil, Davenport, Jones, Daniil, Davenport, Wanham, etc. So I don't think that anyone is necessarily punted out of a job. I think Luigi Villain, last year's UDFA out of Wake Forest, formerly of Michigan, who was on the 53 all season because they didn't want to try and get him on the practice squad. I think he's relatively safe. I think there is some upside there. And Carter probably needs a solid 2 years to develop, just really thicken out, as well as add some more pass rush moves to his repertoire and just really practice. We talk about practice, man, and get used to high-level football. So I think that Carter doesn't really threaten anyone, but maybe in 3 years he could be a dude. But I think right now, your practice squad going forward. But that's it. That's 8 plus, I guess, whatever. Vikings put on notice by players drafted and a couple UDFAs in this class. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts. Who should be on notice? Who should be worried? Let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Won't support the work. Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.